What's going on, Substack, and welcome to the latest Midas meetup on Substack. Now, we got off to a slightly late start, a few technical issues earlier, but we are super excited to be here. As you know, we've been doing these every Thursday for the past few weeks. We are highlighting the greatest pro democracy voices in the country and around the world right here on this Substack, growing this pro democracy community. And you know, we got to bring you the heavy hitters, we got to bring you the greatest guests imaginable. So, folks, today I am super excited. And has there ever been a better time to have this guest on the show than legendary reporter and banned White House reporter Brian Karem to the show to speak to everybody today about all these attacks on the press, what is going on with the news. Brian Karem, such a pleasure to have you here on the Midas Plus Substack. Welcome.
Well, it's always a pleasure, brother. Good to see you and Ben. You all are doing well. That's good to see.
Brian, you, as Brett mentioned, you are essentially, you have your credentials, but you are banned. Trump administration said they want you basically going nowhere near him in the press room or nowhere near Caroline Levitt. You asked a number of what have become very famous, poignant, appropriate questions during the first administration. Walk us through this process about, you being banned. Let's start with that, and how you find out that, like, do you try to show up and they're like, you don't go in there? What's the process?
Well, it started out when he tried to yank my press pass in his first administration, and I kicked his butt in court 3 times. He didn't like that too much. So, what they've done, they've gotten a little smarter about how they shadow ban you this time. Instead of trying to yank your press pass, which they found out they couldn't do with me and Jim Acosta, what they've done instead is create another barrier to entry. The only time you see the president is with the pool. And so I'm not in the pool, and that pool is about 20 reporters, and the largest corporations, largest organizations circulate through that pool on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. And so those people are the ones he's appearing before. He In his first administration, he came into the briefing room. He hasn't done that yet. He only came in the last year of his administration during COVID. And after that, stayed and kind of liked it. His big thing was chopper talk, and he would walk out, and I blame myself for that one. He would come by for the first 4 months of his administration and not say anything. And it was like April of his first year in office. I saw him walking out with the white shirt, the red tie, the dark suit, and his hair fluttering in the breeze, with the tie fluttering in the breeze. And for all the world, he looked like Rodney Dangerfield to me. And so I said, Mr. President, tough room, huh? And he walked over and he says, Playboy, what do you got? And from there, he started stopping. He figured he could work that rope line pretty good. So he would talk to the regular members of the press that aren't in the pool. This time around, he's not even taking chances. He's been in front of the open press maybe once or twice. He's convincing people that he's more accessible than Biden was, or that even he was in his first administration. But it's all appearance. It's not reality. It's him in front of the pool, and he kind of controls that pool. He stays for maybe 20, 30 minutes. He takes questions that he likes. He even compliments them, and then they don't push back. It's hard to get a groove going when you've got like 20, 30 seconds to ask a question, and then you have other reporters that are trying to listen, but they don't. They're interested in their question. So it's all manipulation by him. So it's not an outright ban, it's a shadow ban. He's trying to keep those who, and it's not just me, he's trying to keep anyone that would ask him a hard question that isn't in his hip pocket away from him. And then you have the PEP secretary. I don't even call her a press secretary anymore. She runs PEP rallies. And so they're down to doing those once or twice a week, and they're going to call on the people that they like and they know, right, in that briefing room. I'm not one of those. And so I have been there, but not too much in the first 100 days, because we're putting together a documentary on the first 100 days of Trump. So I've kind of been following him and been out and about and interviewing others. So it's just part of their strategy to limit his involvement, to make it look like he is popular, to make it look like he's on point, and then he just loves to insult us. So it's more of a shadow ban, but it's a ban nonetheless.
So you're doing the doc on the first 100 days. We're basically through 30 days. how would you describe, I guess, chapter one of your 3.25 part series?
Well, there are those who say it's a constitutional crisis, and I'd say they're dead wrong. That's in the rearview mirror. That's already settled. Yet the fact of the matter is, he's a dictator. He declared himself king yesterday. He's ruling by executive fiat. He banned the AP from the pool simply because they wouldn't bow to his presidential decree that it's the Gulf of America instead of the Gulf of Mexico. It's bull. The fact of the matter is, it's the Gulf of Mexico, and the AP has a responsibility to report the facts. There's been no law passed. No foreign nation has recognized it as the Gulf of America. He comes out and said, and his press secretary said, we're going to hold people accountable for lies. What lie was told? They tell lies on a daily basis. They're not allowing us to hold them accountable. So at the end of the day, there's a column I wrote for Salon today, at the end of which I said, we are now, look at the signpost up ahead. We're living in Donald Trump's head. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. It's way beyond a constitutional crisis.
And Brian, what a lot of people are saying in regards to this AP situation is, and I see the comments here right now as we're live even, is why isn't the press banding together? And we've heard multiple people now, Jim Acosta's been a big leader of this by saying, you know what, the press should band together. They should boycott the briefings in solidarity with AP. I've heard other things that from reporters online saying one of the reasons they're not doing that is because the White House Correspondents Association is trying to work something out behind the scenes. What's your take right now on how should the press be handling this very unusual moment? Do you agree with Acosta's idea of a boycott? Do you think that would be a mistake? What's your take?
I love Jim. He's a good friend. I think that's in theory is a great idea. In practicality, it'll never work. And here's the other thing: the WHCA is not going to do anything. They're too busy trying to bow to the power. For the first week of this administration, the WHCA was promoting the president's schedule. Right? He didn't have anybody. He's supposed to be publishing the president's schedule. We don't work for the president. Yet the WHCA was. So I'm sorry, the WHCA is useless. They're too busy trying to protect their own butts. And if you're going to have a boycott, here's what's going to happen. First of all, you'll never get everybody in the press corps to agree to do it because there are people that support him. So what will happen is if there are real reporters who would boycott and walk away, Donald Trump would love that. He'd simply fill the room with his fans. I take a different tactic. You're going to pull me out of that room when you can pry my pencil out of my cold gray hands. The fact of the matter is, I'm going to stay there and I'm going to give you shit because that's my job. Get into Representative Lewis said, get into good trouble. I'm getting in good trouble, by God. I'm standing there and I'm going to force feed you the questions you need to answer because the bottom line is that's what we're there to do. So while I think in theory a boycott would be great, you'll never get all the reporters to do it. You'll simply be playing to Trump's. Like I said, he'd freaking love it. Get rid of all those losers. Bring in a bunch of friends. Let's get it done. That's what he'll say, and that's what he'll do. So my feeling is you'd never bow to a bully. The only way to deal with him is to thump him in the nose. So I'd be there asking him again and again and again, when will you stop lying to the American people, Mr. President? When will you realize you're not a king? You're a hired hand and a temp worker at best. You work for us. We don't work for you. And the idea that they would tell us that it is a privilege to be in the Oval Office, I say to them, the privilege is for you. Your privilege to be there by the grace of 77 million voters. It's our responsibility to the Constitution to be there. This is our job. I'm not giving it up because you're a POS and you want to try to bully me. I'm not bowing.
We
Sorry.
have no. This is where passion lives at the MeidasTouch Network. I want to talk about how we channel that passion in just a moment. I want to remind everybody, to all of our viewers here, make sure if you're not already subscribed to the MeidasTouch Substack, and make sure you're checking out Brian Karem's Substack as well. And let's keep growing these independent media platforms. And you see up there at the top, you can hit subscribe. Everybody, make sure you're subscribed. If you can become a paid subscriber, fantastic. If not, just become a subscriber and test it out and tell me what you think. So I want to talk about the passion, Brian, which is something seems to be cooking right now, quicker than I think even maybe some expected, because it's the pace at which we pass constitutional crisis into dictatorship. And I think people want to protest. I think people want to take to the street. I think people are just asking, where do we go? To me, that's it's not, it's where, and we will show up. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I see people upset not knowing how to do what they
Hmm.
need to do. And there's a couple of touch points that it doesn't sound sexy but has to be done. First of all, I'm tired of Donald Trump telling me that, he represents the silent majority. That's a Richard Nixon freaking slogan that he's reinvented for himself. The fact of the matter is he's not the silent majority. The silent majority are those people who do not vote. And they're the problem. Because if you have 65% voter turnout and you consider that great turnout, I want to remind everyone that that means in this case, 77 million voters representing a little more than 30 to 35% of the super minority, they're the ones who elected this president. Get your butt out, get off your fat butt and go vote. Get involved, volunteer at your local precinct, get yourself involved in the election process. This democracy only works when we're involved. I know you're busy taking your kids to, softball practice and baseball practice, but make a little bit of time for the fact that if you don't, you're not going to get a paved street. You're not going to get health care. You're not going to get you're not even going to get your income tax refund. You just can what 6,000 IRS workers. So you're screwed, blued, and tattooed if you're not involved in it. And secondly, here's a stat that really sells what I'm trying to say about the press. We suck. And one of the reasons why we suck is because there's not much of us around anymore. There are vast news deserts. 45% of the counties in this country do not, that's 45, that's nearly half of the counties in this
Crazy.
country do not have a local news outlet. So there was a study done by the Medill School of Journalism. Paul Ferry wrote the article. He's the former media reporter at the Washington Post. He'd be great to have on your show too. Paul talks about these vast news deserts. It's something that I wrote about in my book, Free the Press. You've got 90. Here's the thing: where you have no news, Donald Trump won 91% of those counties by an overwhelming majority. Now, it's not to say that one caused the other. Correlation is not causation. Post hoc, ergo propter hoc. I get it. But there is a correlation. The correlation is the fact that when you don't have local news, you listen to the divisive national news and you don't hold people accountable. The fact of the matter is, support your local media, folks. If you've got local media, subscribe to your local media. Hell with anything else. And get on this, get on Substack and listen to voices. Listen to people that get you out of your comfort zone. Make sure that you take in all that you can. Because the fact of the matter is, people need to know what's going on, and we're not getting it done today.
You,
Again, the press sucks. But
and
I've only been in it for 40 years. What do I know?
yeah, I know you're just faking it. I know. Here's the thing though that also scares me, because local media I think is super important. Independent media more important than
Yeah.
ever. One of the things that frightens me is that a lot of these entities that still exist today have been captured by other entities. So you have a lot of local media stations out there that are perceived to be local media. Then you look under the hood, you see they're Sinclair affiliates, right? You see they're
Yes.
actually owned by these right-wing voices. And the media networks are being captured by these right-wing centers, and the social media, the national media. People tune into Fox, I think. A lot of people don't even realize Fox is like a fake news channel because it has all the accoutrements
And
of
was
a
even ruled so in court, Brett.
so,
They lost a $700 million lawsuit and could not call themselves a news provider. Look, most of the news that you see today, They say 90% of what you see, read, or hear is owned by, 6 companies. I think that's true at the national level.
Yeah.
We're the poor, we're the poor stepsisters of the entertainment industry, or you want to say the bastard stepchild of most entertainment companies own us, and I guarantee you, those people are not liberal. The members of those boardrooms are not liberal. They are biased towards money. So if they can sell you something to the far left, they're going to sell it. If they can sell you something to the far right, they'll sell it. So you see that the national media, that's why it's divided the way it is. The truth of the matter is when you sit down and talk to people, we have far more in common than we have different. And local media is what used to bring people together. You may like Trump, you may like Biden, you may be a Democrat, you may be a Republican, but you still want a paved street. You still want a safe, why is that stoplight at the corner? What's my city council doing? You find that corruption rises in all government when there's less media covering it. When I first went to Montgomery County, Maryland, to cover the White House 30 some odd years ago, Montgomery County, Maryland had one daily newspaper, two different weekly newspapers, a third that was an independent, and two radio stations. And the Washington Post had two reporters covering Montgomery County. You'd go to a county council meeting, and there'd be 6 reporters there. Go to a county council meeting today, and this is in Montgomery County, one of the most prosperous counties in the country. No one's covering the county council. So imagine what's going on in your poor rural communities where there's no coverage at all. Corruption is rampant, and it only can thrive in the darkness. You
But
need to
Brian,
put people there.
But Brian, the billionaires, everybody knows they're so rich that why would they have ulterior motives? The billionaires just want to be helpful to the poor. Before I get the nasty comments, I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah,
But
Ben, I
that
caught it.
but the line that they are feeding their sheeple, because it's obvious that what is happening is the billionaires are literally taking people's data, taking their social security, their Medicare, their Medicaid, what have you. What if you turn to corporate media, what they're saying is these people are so rich that of course you can trust them because they have so much money already. That's
Yeah.
what they're saying.
You know, my dad had a saying, with all this shit around here, there's got to be a pony somewhere. But at the end of the day, they're just filling you full of shit. You know damn well that wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first was the other one that my dad liked to say. And the fact of the matter is, you can wish for the billionaires to care for you, but they didn't get to be that rich by caring about you. They got that rich by caring about them. And that's how that rolls. And if you don't see that coming, you're the mark. And I know you were talking, satirically, but there are millions of people who believe that.
They
And there are
believe it.
millions. Yeah. And not only that, but I mean, I had one of them tell me the other day that what we need is a father in the White House. And I go, no, I don't need it. By the way, if Donald Trump is my dad, I don't want to be anywhere near the SOB. But the fact of the matter is, you don't need a dad in the White House. He's a hired hand. He needs to do what the people ask him to do, and that's not what's being done. And by the way, there's no guidance for Elon Musk. He is operating outside the law, leveling the government and destroying. By the way, 6 months from now, wait and see what happens to the economy due to what's occurring now. The stock market took a tumble today. You're firing million. Where the hell are these people going to work? What are you doing to the economy when you put thousands of people out of work purposely? And at the
That's the
same
thing.
time,
The, the,
yeah,
the way I describe it, Brian, I don't mean to cut you off though,
no, go. Oh,
is
sorry.
the when a tsunami hits, the first sign is the receding shore,
Yeah,
and then the tsunami comes. The same way you've said we're already past the constitutional crisis, the shores have receded, right? Like
right.
the acts that have happened are done. And so when I'm thinking about the economy right now, what I'm thinking is now there's a little bit of a lag period from the waves of positivity that former President Biden, at least on the economy, had been bringing, with pushing it in the right direction. Now it is receding, and, as your point, we're going to see in 5 to 6 months the consequence of other countries not buying America, tourism cutting off to America, Canadian boycotts of America, European boycotts of America, Trump's the damage has happened. It's occurred. It's done.
Well, and
Now the impact.
you're already starting to see some of the impact of that in the Washington D.C. area, where people are being laid off and fired. Home prices have fallen for the first time in years. So this is all building up. The tsunami that is coming, you can't stop at this point. And I'm sorry, there were other people who said, Donald Trump yesterday, putting out that meme about how he is the king. And there are people going, "Yeah, I love him. He's my king." Kiss my ass. Look, there have been an undertone of 20 to 30% of the population since the revolution, right? There were 20 to 30% of the people during the revolution who supported the king. And there were 20 to 30% of the people of the population who supported slavery, and 20 to 30% of the people who supported the Nazis. The difference between today and those times is social media. And they have made themselves felt and known. They're a passionate group of fascists. They're a passionate group of racists. You have the presidential pep secretary cheering them on. You've got Elon Musk giving a freaking Nazi salute and going to Germany and talking to Nazis. That's where we are. And until you wake up and see the tsunami is coming, all you're going to do is stand there and cheer Donald Trump and go, eggs, it's the cost of eggs. And he's going to sit there and blame. He's going to blame Biden. He's going to blame wokeism. He's going to blame, everybody but himself, because he can never, as he said when I asked him, and I asked him pointedly, do you accept responsibility? No, I take no responsibility. That's how he rolls. He's not going to take responsibility. He's going to blame everybody else, and there will be people who will continue to believe him right into the grave. The good news is when the asteroid hits in a few years, it'll take care of all our problems.
I want to say this, and then Brett, I'm going to pass it to you because I got to do a hot take, but I want to keep this conversation going. I want to answer the question that I see, which is, so what do we do? So what do we do? I'm going to answer that. I want to remind everybody, though, to subscribe to our Substack because we're trying to keep on growing this platform. If you're not already subscribed, you can subscribe for free above. We'd love for you to become a paid subscriber. We'd love for you to check out Brian Karem Substack. Right up there, you hit subscribe, hit subscribe. Okay. What do we do? So there's a few things I think we do. The first is there's an information battle that Brian Karem identified, and we have to win the information with the truth and with the facts. And so what we're doing at the MeidasTouch Network is we're building both rapid response and long-term infrastructure where we need to compete with Fox. We're already beating Fox in digital. We get more views on a daily basis right now than Fox. And I'm sure a lot of you saw the news that we are beating Joe Rogan in podcast downloads. That's not
Woohoo!
that, I mean, it's great, but to me, it shows that the message is starting to catch on and people are craving the truth. And the fact that a media network can break through is an important step, because what that means is that we're packing the truth and we're giving people the data. And I want to grow that to 3x, 5x, 10x, 100x, because I want to reach eventually these brainwashed sheeple, and I want to explain to them, hey, the billionaire is screwing you. The billionaire is screwing you. Putin is not your friend. The billionaires are screwing you. Stop it. Stop
That's
it. And then so there's that. Second, one of the things that we can do is we the people are going to be called what I'm referring to as the spring or summer of democracy. And we're going to have to let our voices be heard. I think we put pressure on politicians, sure. We put pressures on the court, sure. But we're going to have to take it into our hands, we the people. I want the protests that are going to happen and grow to be peaceful. I want them to be peaceful. I'm calling on them to be peaceful, but we the people are going to coalesce. We are going to stand up, and we, I think, are going to show in a historic way that will be learned for generations that we're not going to take billionaires like Elon Musk and Donald Trump screwing us. And that's what we're going to do together. And we're going to use the Substack, our YouTube, the hundreds of millions of views that we're getting to translate that into action. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to fight for you, and we're going to get people to show up. So I just wanted to leave that part as well. Let me ask you, Brian, what you think, and then Brett, just because I have to do an 11:30 video, I'm going to pass it over for you two to finish the conversation. But I want to tell everybody who's watching it, we stand with you, and we are going to fight for you every single day. Not just with empty words, but with actions and building this network and then bringing it to the street when we're going to bring it to the street. Hold strong. And Brett and Brian, I want you to continue the convo. And everybody, hit subscribe up there, okay?
Thanks, Ben. It's been great chatting with you. And go make that video.
Go make that video, damn it.
Get to work. Get to work. No
Get
laziness.
to work, you
Well,
bastards.
well, Brian, we've covered so much, and first, I just gotta say, you are easily, one of my favorites. You tell it how it is. You're no bullshit. Like you're a real journalist in the traditions of the greatest journalists of our time, and so it's always such an honor to have you on with us, and I'm so excited to be able to go live with you on this community. So first, I got to suck up to you a little bit there.
Well, I'll return the favor and say invest in the documentary.
We'll chat about that offline. Here's the next thing that I wanted to say. Do you have anything else? Like, where should people find you, Brian? You have the Just Ask the Question podcast. What are other things? Where else can people find you, read your work, etc.? Why don't you let people know now, and then I'll get to my last question.
Okay, so it's salon.com twice a week with a column. You can find me on Substack. Reverse Shot is a new one that we're doing, turning the camera around and pointing out the foibles and the successes of the press and talking about the problems of the press and how to improve the press. And at the same time, on the 27th, that's a week from today, at the Comedy Chateau in Los Angeles, California, I will be joined with Hal Sparks and Tom Arnold on stage talking about the convergence of comedy, free speech, and Donald Trump taking over the damn Kennedy Center. What's going to happen on the Mark Twain Award? So it's going to be fun to talk to people outside of politics who are affected by politics, because that's all of us. Every one of us is affected by it. And to your point, I want to get vetted factual information. I can't tell you the number of times I've had people come up to me and tell me, this is how I feel. And I go, I don't give a shit how you feel or what you think. What do you know? These are reporters who've worked for me. So go out and look for people who are going to tell you the truth and give you the facts. That's the most important thing you can do as a consumer of news. And that's the most important thing that I can do as a provider of news. I'm a witness. I'll tell you, if you ask me what I think, I'll tell you. But I'm going to try and tell you the facts first and let you decide what you think.
And now that we're talking about media literacy, that brings me to, I think, what could be our last question here, is that Steve Bannon infamously told the press during the first Trump administration that their strategy was to, quote, flood the zone with shit. And we have seen this flood the zone with shit strategy with Donald Trump during his term. I mean, every day we wake up in horror of, wait, well, he's getting rid of this, he's getting rid of that, he's firing this, he's doing this. And it's so overwhelming. And then there are, of course, the posts that we've been discussing, the Donald Trump post declaring himself a king and threatening Zelensky, calling him a dictator, all of this crazy shit that we see on a daily basis. So from a news consumer's point of view, Brian, as everybody is facing this deluge of Trump content, rage bait, whatever you want to call it, every single day, how do we sift through like what's really urgent, what's really important? Like, I know we don't want people's head on fire every day with everything Trump says. So how do we weed through the distractions and the nonsense while not minimizing it when he says I'm a king or Zelensky's a dictator? I think it's one of the unique things in the Trump era that consumers and journalists have to deal with.
I think critical thinking is important to begin. That's the ground level that you start out. Now let's go to the Constitution. Read it. Find out what it is, what it means, and how we're violating it now. And prioritize what Donald Trump says. And people say, oh, some of this is a distraction. Yeah, it's a distraction, but it's not. Donald Trump's reach will be whatever he can get. So if you think him declaring himself as a king is a distraction, mazel tov. The truth of the matter is he'd love to be a king if he could. So that's important. But take a look I would prioritize it thus. Where does his actions fall in line with the Constitution and maintaining a democracy? The chilling, most obvious thing right now is that he has shown up. His VP showed up in Germany and sided with China and Russia. He has sided with China and Russia. He blamed Ukraine for the Russian invasion. How could and said, by the way, said that Russians have died owning that land, so they should keep some of it. That type of logic would then, if he were president in 1942, he would tell the Germans they get to keep part of Russia because they died trying to invade it. That's crap. So prioritize things, read a lot of different sources, get out of your own comfort zone, left, right, middle, read everything. I will give, and then I will tell you this, I will give the Trump supporters this much. They voted. They voted. I will support the vote. You've got to get involved. So it's involved in, as a news consumer, it's involved in getting multiple sources for your news, double checking who those news sources are, looking up to see who's actually providing it, who owns Fox. It takes a lot of work, but if you're going to be informed, that's what it takes. That's what you're going to have to do, is get more involved in the art and the concept of critical thinking, and Jesus support critical thinking in a school environment. I would say, hey, laugh or cry. We'll be here all week. Try the veal, but I don't trust the veal anymore because they fired the food inspector. So, I don't think you'll get the education that you need either. You're going to have to do it yourself. And that's the toughest part, Brett. That's the challenge we all face until we can institutionalize again some of these processes of learning and becoming involved. It's up to the proximate man and woman to do the work themselves.
I think that's incredible advice and a great note to leave it. And it reminds me of JFK. Ask not what your
Not,
country could do
yeah.
for you, ask what you could do for your country. And I know a lot of people out there every day are saying, "What is Congress doing for me? What are the courts doing for me?" At a certain point, we got to push them for sure, and they should be doing more. But we are the ones who need to be saving us. We are
Well,
the ones.
and to your point, Brett, those people, look, they they get paid by your taxes. That makes them your employee. And by God, I want them responsible. I don't give a crap what Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks about X, Y, or Z. I want to know what the she's doing for me if she were my congresswoman. And the same with any member of Congress. Do not hesitate to be involved enough to call those offices. They have people who sit there and answer those phones. They take all interaction very seriously. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. That's part of being an informed consumer of news. When you consume the news and you know what's going on and you're not falling for the garbage about, hey, if you're out in West Texas right now with all the measles that have broken out and now it's spread to New Mexico and Arizona, you have real problems because there are people who don't believe in vaccines. Get the truth, damn it. It's there. Just get involved.
Brian, it's great speaking to you. Thank you for your lifetime of service. I mean, you're
I'm an
just the
old
best.
fart. What can I tell you?
You're you're
So,
you're you're the best. I know everybody loves you. And for all those who do love Brian, which are more than 4,000 people currently live with us, and the
wow.
hundreds of thousands more who are going to be watching this after the fact, I want to make sure that everybody does check out all of Brian's work. Check out Brian's books, his podcast, his Substack. Check out his live event with Hal Sparks and Tom Arnold in the Los Angeles area. Look out for that documentary that Brian is working on. Brian is one of the best, if not the best, out there, and we are so grateful to have him. Make sure that you're also subscribed to the Midas Plus Substack. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you probably already are. If not, you just hit the follow button right above, and you could follow us on Substack. I want to thank everybody also for making the MeidasTouch podcast the #1 podcast in the United States. If you haven't yet added the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple and Spotify, you could do that right now. And Brian, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Peace and love, brother. I appreciate you too. Those were nice compliments, and I didn't even pay for them.
Godspeed. We'll talk to you soon. Let's do this again.
Anytime.
All right. Bye.